Hey guys, I'm Lincoln and welcome to my YouTube channel. This is the second video in the FlutterFlow for Beginners 10-part series where I help you get going on your FlutterFlow journey so you can start building mobile, web, and desktop apps. Now, if you haven't watched the first video, then I suggest you pause this, go watch it, and then come back so you can follow along. If you remember from the last one, I said that we'd start building our first app in this video, but there's a concept that you need to understand in order to build fast on FlutterFlow, and that concept is layout. Now, layout is how you align widgets in your app. If you're familiar with Canva or Figma, you may assume that we just drag and drop widgets onto a screen, then call it a day, but not quite. There's some widgets that dictate how things are placed, and after this video, you'll know exactly how different types of layouts are achieved. I'd say the most commonly used widgets on FlutterFlow are columns and rows. And after this video, I want you to start looking at your favorite websites and apps so you can notice how everything is either a column or a row. Now, columns and rows work similarly on FlutterFlow, with the one difference being their direction. Let me demonstrate. It's important to keep in mind that when you build apps on FlutterFlow, everything is built from the top to the bottom. You stack your widgets from top to bottom. You cannot start in the middle. You cannot start at the bottom. It goes from top to bottom. So just keep that in mind when you're building your mobile apps. All right, let's get into it. More often than not, widgets are stacked vertically on an app page like this. This is possible only if these widgets are placed inside of a column which stacks widgets from top to bottom. Let's add a column of our own with some widgets inside and let's see this in action. So I added a column, and in this column I added 3 containers. I changed the colors so that you can see them clearly. We have plenty of control with how you align widgets in a column. You can place everything at the start, which in terms of a column, this is the top. You can center everything. You can place everything at the end, which is the bottom. You can space everything evenly. You can have space around. You can also have space between. All right, we've looked at columns. Up next, we're going to look at rows. I'm going to add the same 3 containers and show you how you can align them in a row. You have the same controls as you do with a column. You can stack up your widgets at the start. You can center your widgets. You can place everything at the end, which would be the right in this case. You can also space everything evenly. You can have space around your widgets, and you can have space between your widgets. One way to achieve some unique layout is by using stacks. To show you how stacks work, I'm going to use 2 containers with different colors. Stacks place widgets in the Z direction. We see Z in South Africa, Z in the US. Now I want you to notice what happens when I change the order of the stacks in our widget tree. The widget that's at the top has a lower Z index compared to the one at the bottom, meaning that it will be lower than the one that's at the bottom. I hope that's clear enough. Up next, we have the list view, and it's a great way to display large lists of data or widgets. Here's how they work. Let's add a list view onto a blank page. Next, let's find a nice card template from the templates list. FlutterFlow has a bunch of great templates. This will do. Now let's just drag and drop it onto our list view. I'll duplicate this a few times just for example's sake. Now you have a list of cards neatly organized in a list view. List views also allow for scrolling. Next up, we have grid views, which are pretty similar to list views, but as the name suggests, they organize widgets in a grid rather than a simple list. To demonstrate a grid, we'll add a grid view onto our page. I'll then add a container. I will duplicate this container so that it fills our screen. Then change the colors just so that you can see it more clearly. Also just because it's nice. Let's go over some simple settings and see how they affect our grid. You can set the spacing for the cross and main axis. This will set the space between the containers in our case. You can set how many items are displayed per row. You can also change the size of the children within the grid. It's important to note that you can add anything into a grid. You can add a container, you can add text, you can add a card. You can also use a template like we did the last time. Lastly, but definitely not least, we have containers. These widgets allow for styling and some other cool features. Let's see them in action. We'll drag a container onto our screen and give it a defined height and width. Next, I'll just add some simple text to demonstrate exactly what containers do. So they, simply put, they contain items. They add some constraints to the child widgets. In this case, it's just text. I'll move the container to the middle just so you can see clearly. Now you can choose how to align items within your container. You can move it to the center. You can also add a gradient to your container. You can also change the border radius. Let me remove the text. You can add a box shadow. You can also just have a border with no fill. Let me remove this box shadow. Okay, back to the black. You can also change the elevation. Just like the other layout widgets, you can add anything to a container. Let me add a column. In this column, I'll just add some text and duplicate it a few times. So we've gone over columns and rows, we've gone over stacks, we've gone over list views, grid views, and lastly we went over containers. Now these make up the layout widgets that are found in FlutterFlow, and as mentioned before, layout widgets dictate how the widgets are placed within your app. They dictate the layout of your app, and just like that, you now know how to align widgets within your app. I hope you guys found this video useful. Don't forget to subscribe and like. Leave me a comment. Let me know what you think of FlutterFlow. Will you be trying it for yourself, for your business, or for a client? Look out for the next video in this 10-part series. Hope you guys have a good day, and I'll see you on the next video.